What's going on, guys? Adam with Salty Freedom here. Today we're going to be doing our impeller change on our Yamaha 150s. We got two of them here on the Sea Hunt Gamefish, and we're going to kind of walk you guys through it. We've had a lot of questions asked about that from the oil change. What's the next step in doing your next step in maintenance? So we're going to do that today, and y'all come on and be with us. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our prop off. It's a good time to check it, make sure there's no line in it, and then also whenever we pull the lower unit down, it'll be a lot lighter without a prop on it. So the first thing we do is take your needle nose pliers, and you got this cotter pin right here. You see where it's split? We're going to take our needle nose and squeeze those together, and then hopefully this should come right out. Alright, and once you get the cotter key out, we're going to take our prop wrench, hold the prop, and spin it right off. And then we're just going to take and slide the prop off. Everything looks good. No line on there on your thrust washer. Plenty of grease. Everything looks good. This will be another 15 pounds that you won't have to carry whenever we take that over to the workbench. Alright, and another thing, after we got the prop off, we're actually going to take this thrust washer and just set it over there on the prop for right now. We'll grease it and put it back later. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is take this little cap off. And underneath here, it's hiding a bolt that actually holds the lower unit on, and once we get that off, we can start taking all the other bolts off to hold the lower unit on. So to do this, it takes a 12mm socket, and you will need an extension. Find it in there. Get your ratchet, lefty loosey. Alright, so you see this has got our anode coming loose. And I don't have one to replace it with today, but in the next week or two I will go ahead and put a new one on for this season. This one would probably still work okay, but just have a fresh sacrificial anode on there. Alright, so our next bolt is actually up under where your sacrificial was, and it takes a 14, I believe. So you have a 14mm socket. Alright, we got our 14, lefty loosey, and there she goes. There's a bolt, nice and clean. Everything looks good on it. Now this engine does have like 260 hours on it, so I feel like for that amount of time in the water, these bolts actually look fairly good. We'll make sure we grease these up whenever we go back with them, so future times there's no chance of having corrosion or a stuck bolt or anything like that. So our next ones, we're going to start working on these three right here, and then there's three on the other side. So we're going to come around, and you need a ratcheting box in. Really works nice because, especially right in here, it's hard to get a socket up in there and you actually scratch it. So just break that one loose. Let's go ahead and break them loose. Three. And we've got three in the exact same place on the other side. Alright, so now we've got all 6 of our bolts out on the sides and our one holding it up top. So next thing you're going to do is kind of just pop it and break it loose, because right now there's nothing holding it in. Another tip, you need to tilt the engine up about the angle that you have now, because your main drive shaft goes up, and whenever the lower unit comes loose, it's going to slide down. Like so. And then I've got this little workmate table here that we take, and I can slide it in like this and just tighten it up. And hold it snug. That way we're working with it. And that's where it comes in to take the prop off, because again, you couldn't get the prop through that crack in the table. And now you've got a good working surface, and we'll start taking these bolts off your impeller housing. Alright, so now we're going to take off this impeller housing, and to do that, 12mm socket. And I'm just going to go around and just break them all loose first, all the way around, because this is a plastic housing, and I don't want to put any added stress to it. So once we've got them all broke loose though, we'll go ahead and take them out. Alright, we got all 4 out. Come on. All 4 loose. We'll set them right here on the table. Then we're actually going to come up with this housing. Alright, so I got a little screwdriver. So I'll just, again, be very gentle because it is a plastic housing. But then it should slide right up. I'm going to set this off to the side.
That's just glue.
Alright, now we're going to work this up. A thing to remember also is to keep everything in the same order. So you see we've got our plastic, our rubber ring. That will actually go inside the housing whenever it all goes back, and this is just like a little glue that holds the metal inside of the plastic housing. But I'm just going to keep it just like this for now. And then the ring. This is what everybody hates, and it's a tough thing to get. So we're going to work on this and get that ring up. After that, everything else will slide right up. A useful tip, you see how I've got a little bit of rust on this shaft? You can take a piece of emery cloth and just kind of sand that off the first part of the shaft. It'll make getting that ring off a little easier. So another thing is I actually took a pair of just regular common pliers and opened them up wide, and you can go around. Don't squeeze the shaft, but that'll allow you to kind of work it all the way around with your screwdriver and to pry up on it. And we've just about got it now. All right, whew. Best thing to do is just go from one side to the next. Keep alternating. So we take our ring, our stubborn ring, take that, and we have this. I'm going to pick up the whole impeller at this point. It has a plastic washer and 2 springs on it. We'll take those off all at the same time. Actually, there's our plastic washer. And these 2 rings, when you come off, I just pinch them both at the same time, come off, and just set them down just like that. That way I know I can grab them again and they go right back down. We're going to slide off with our impeller. So you can see that's the actual wear pattern there, but you see it's a good little wrinkle on all of them. Probably the biggest thing with this is there's a keyhole right here, and that'll go with the old one as well. And if you're not doing the whole kit, if you're just doing an impeller replacement, there's your key that it'll slide down. Maybe at every 500 hours we'll do a whole kit replacement, replace the plate, the keyway, everything. But for right now we're just doing an impeller. Here we have our Yamaha impeller. There's your part number. And we're going to bust it open. There again, very important that your keyway, little groove, that points down on the shaft. So I'm just going to wipe this, just make sure it's nice and clean. No debris, no grit or anything. With the keyway down, I'm going to go ahead and just slide it on down. So as I'm going down, I can see where that keyway is. And get it exactly right, and slid right down. Now I'll come over to the old one. You can see this little ring that's on top of the old one. We're going to drop it down in the same orientation that it was setting. My two washers that I took off before in the same orientation, slide them down the shaft. Your plastic washer right there, slide it down. And good news is the stubborn ring, it goes on a lot easier than it come off. So we're going to go down and actually take an adjustable wrench and a hammer and just kind of just slightly tap all the way around until it's settled, which is about right there. Alright, so now we've got our impeller housing. This O-ring, if you look, there's actually a slit that it fits right in there just like that. I'm going to take our metal part, our housing, check it. It's like brand new. There's nothing going on with it. So it will fit right in there. And there's a couple slots in there it'll fit in. Alright, so I've got my metal housing put in place, locked in, the O-rings in place in between the plastic and the metal. And we are just going to slide this down over top. Actually goes this way. And then, probably one of the biggest things. You see the way the old one was turning. That's how it was oriented. The keyway's on the bottom. So it was oriented and turning clockwise if you're looking down. Once you set the housing down, we're actually going to take this shaft and spin it as we push down on the housing. Just like that. And that locks in your housing on your two pins on either side. There it goes. Falls in place, and we're ready to grease and put our bolts back to hold the housing in. A good thing to do is take these. I've just got a little wire brush here. Just make sure all the threads are cleaned out. All the old residue is off before we put any new sealant on there. Alright, now so what I'm going to do, take a little bit of Never Seas. A little bit goes a long way, and try not to get any on your fingers. We're just going to put a little bit on the threads. Start putting them in one by one. as we tighten, this is a plastic housing, so you need to make sure that once you feel one get tight, don't go to the next one, cross them up and go crossways. And once you feel that one tight, we're not going to tighten them down all the way. I just want to feel them get snug like that. I'm going to come over here to this next one and keep working it. And then once we get all of them fairly snug, we'll start going around, because again, a plastic housing, we can't over tighten these bolts and that won't be good. So that one's pretty snug, so we're going to start over, just hand tight. No driver, no impact drill on that. Getting kind of tight. That's good. You'll feel it when it gets tight. No need to go too much. We'll just go one more time around just for safekeeping. Alright. Alright. So we're ready to go back into the motor. So we're going to take it and loosen our stand up. All the way. And then one very key important piece before I slide it in. This is your shift rod. Make sure you don't turn it or twist it in any way, because this will line up with a spline in the motor itself, and if you don't get it right, then it's not going to go into gear or it'll be locked in gear. So make sure you don't twist that. Fits up in the hole. As we go up, just double check your tube. And I have to twist that to get it to line up. There it goes. And then right here, this is the tube that you're going to want to make sure lines up there. And then this is actually your speedometer pickup there. It'll also fit in. Alright. We'll start working these bolts in all the way around. Alright, I've got all my bolts cleaned off. Just going to put a little never sees on the threads as I'm putting them up in there. I'm getting them started. And that's got these 6. I've got the 3 on the other side already done. They are tight. So at this point we will take the long one and put some stuff on the end for next time. And it is going to go up through here. Remember we had our extension. Feel it going, it's going to tighten right up. Put our wrench on it. And there's our bolts holding the lower unit on. Alright, so now, before we let the motor down and put the final bolt in, put the final nut in, I'm going to look at this where this prop goes and do a good visual. Again, I can see there's no line or anything, so we're just going to put some never sees on the splines, on the prop shaft, all the way around. I normally will put a little bit right there where that thrust washer goes, and then I'll normally put some on the threads that the nut will go on as well. And at that point, take our prop, again, going right back down in the same orientation it came off. That's going to seat right down in there. There's our nut. Let's see. And it slides right down. Our SDS Fits in tight. We already put our nut, and then I always install a new stainless steel cotter key. Alright, so once I've got this nut fairly tight, for the SDS you need to have it a little loose. That way it can fit and do what it needs to do. I've got my hole lined up. We're going to take our new cotter key, slide that down tight, and bend that out. Then at that point, trim the motor down, and we'll put this final bolt in. Alright, so again, this is our, what size is this? 12 millimeter. Our bolt is hanging down right there. I'm going to stick this in from the top. Get it started for our sacrificial animal. And now once we get it snugged up, pull that out, take our rubber piece, and you're done. Saved you a little bit of money, and you got the peace of mind of knowing that everything is right. Alright guys, thank you guys for watching, and if you're still needing some more service done, we're actually going to do another video on doing the lower unit fluid. Shouldn't take long at all to do. We're going to finish that up and have that going to you as well. If you haven't already, go ahead and like and subscribe, and appreciate y'all watching, and we'll see you on the water.